Let's speak to now Professor Rob Galloway, the NHS consultant. Story on the front page of the Times today says 1 in 5 doctors in the NHS are sick of Britain and they want to leave. Well, we're all sick of it, but it's not our fault. Oh, some of us are sick of doctors as well. Rob, very good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. What's wrong with doctors in this country? They're always moaning. You know, they train for years and years and years, and then they get a job that they expected to get, and then they say they don't like the terms and conditions, they don't like how hard they have to work, and they don't think they're making enough money.
I think the main problem is the way that they have to work in terms of their rotas, not knowing when they're going to work, but also the job stability. What people don't realise is they get a job for the first couple of years as a junior doctor and foundation year 1 and foundation year 2, and then actually there's not a guaranteed or a planned pathway for them to become either a GP or a consultant. And so there is a lot of junior doctors who've qualified, done their foundation years. We've spent a lot of money training them. They spent a lot of money getting trained. They're very, very good doctors, and there is no training scheme for them to go into. There's no plan to get them to become a consultant or a GP, or even when they've qualified as a GP now, there is GP unemployment. And so we've got to think about the money we are wasting as a country training these people and then not having jobs for them.
Has that changed then somehow? Did it used to be better?
There used to be, in many ways, there used to be you guaranteed a job, you qualified as a doctor, and you'd be guaranteed getting the way through to consultant. There's a lack of doctors. Now, there is no plan of what to do with a lot of the medical students we've trained as doctors.
And why is that then?
Very, very poor planning from people. The people like Health Education England have utterly let down the country in many ways. So we are investing so much in training these medical students. So I'm involved in a lot of training medical students and training the first couple of years. Once they've got the first couple of years, there should be pathways for them to become GPs, consultants, but there is not enough training programs. And I know people talk about the salaries, etc., but I don't think that's the main issue. I think the main issue is when they're at work, there's a lack of autonomy from a lot of systems. A lot of hospitals just give them a blank rolling rota, and that's what they've got to work.
But when you're training them, right, do you not have these conversations? Do they not ask you what's it going to be like? You know, because they're investing in quite a lot of years in their training. They're investing in quite a lot of money. They're borrowing quite a lot of money. I would imagine if that was me, I'd be asking, so how is this going to work then for me? What happens to me after the first 2 years? What happens after the first 5 years? You know, do they not ask those questions? Do they not know what it's like?
Yeah, and they are very scared. And a lot of them are going to Australia or overseas because there is not the planning of what we're doing. And also, in the last few years, we've opened up this training market to doctors from everywhere. And so there's a lot of really good UK doctors who cannot get jobs. And it's, you know, that has changed when they started.
But I thought we had a shortage of doctors, didn't we?
That is incorrect now.
So we don't have a shortage of doctors?
What we've got is we've got a shortage of jobs for doctors. So we've invested ridiculous amount of monies in things like physicians' associates who are there to...
But the government's always telling us we haven't got enough doctors, and that's why there's a strain on the number of doctors that are actually working, because if we had more doctors, they wouldn't be so strained.
There is a strain on the number of doctors employed. So if you have a look, we've got GPs who are unemployed at the moment. It is a crazy health system where we're organising the training of junior doctors, and there is the doctors at the moment in the UK at junior level, but there is not the training schemes for them to go into. That is why so many of them are locuming or leaving the NHS or considering leaving, because they've not got that pathway to go on further in their career. So it's a guaranteed job for the first 2 years after they qualify, and then it's not.
So who fixes this then? Who fixes it?
It's a government issue. It's a government issue that they need to, they need to sit down and work out what do we do, how do we train the next generation of consultants? Because it takes, after medical school, 10 years roughly to become a consultant. So my training was 6 years of medical school, 10 years to become a consultant. And when I was training, there was a pathway. Now there is basically about 3 people applying for every training post to become a consultant or a GP. And even when they get there, there is unemployment. So we've got consultants who've trained up as A&E consultants who are struggling to get jobs now. We need to think...
But yet you still need more doctors. So the whole system is kaput, really, by the sounds of it.
What we're doing is we're training junior doctors, then they're leaving. Then we're employing doctors from overseas, where actually if we could retain our own doctors, it would be better. And actually we're putting the money into things like physician associates who aren't, can't make those crucial decisions, because the difference between a doctor and, say, a physician associate is a doctor is a risketician. They're the ones who can actually say, this patient doesn't need to come to hospital. Because the problem with what we're going on about the NHS, we say we need more and more doctors, more and more tests, more and more everything. Actually, what we need to do is reduce demand, realise when we shouldn't be treating people, when we don't need to do tests.
But what's the BMA's role in all this then? Shouldn't they be helping to make this system better?
the BMA, that is for the government and the BMA to try and sort this out. The BMA ultimately is a trade union about pay. What we need is to look at the Royal
College.
But
they're always going on about conditions as well. They should be coming up with a pathway, if you want to call it that, for making it easier for doctors to get to the places you want them to get to. But I think the BMA also are an impediment here, aren't they? Because they don't want there to be too many doctors.
Well, they are arguing that they want one of their policies is to increase the number of training jobs. They don't want their members to not have jobs to go to, and that is what ultimately is happening. And not only there's not enough jobs for them to go to, when they do get jobs, it's so bad in many ways. The rotas are really badly organised. You've got junior doctors trying to get leave for their weddings and told no, it's impossible, or you've got to ask us again in 6 months' time because that's when their rotation starts.
The whole thing's an absolute mess. I mean, you think doctors are supposed to be intelligent people. You sort it out. It should be able to be done. Professor Rob Galloway, thank you very much indeed. We've got to run.